Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Millions of people have poured into the streets of Iran calling for the end of the Islamic regime. The government is fighting back by cutting off internet access and threatening a crackdown by security forces.
Amid the chaos, there is hope. The gospel is spreading throughout the country. Chris Mitchell has the story.
From Isfahan to Tehran and all of Iran's 31 provinces, millions of Iranians are calling for the overthrow of the regime and death to the dictator. President Trump posted on Truth Social that more than 1 million rallied in the streets of Iran's second-largest city, forcing regime forces to leave. In some cities, protesters are attacking police headquarters and the dreaded Bajij, the shock troops used by the regime to quench the protests. So far, more than 2,000 protesters have been arrested and dozens killed. The U.S. State Department is publishing posts in Persian to the Iranian people with President Trump's statement that if the regime kills protesters, the U.S. will intervene. In an attempt to smother those protests, the regime is shutting down the internet, and some reports are emerging of massacres by government forces during the blackout. Despite the internet shutdown, the momentum of the movement seems to be escalating. Exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi issued a call for action for yesterday and today.
Starting precisely at 8 p.m. wherever you are, whether in the streets or even from your own homes, I call on you to begin chanting exactly at this time. Based on your response, I will announce the next calls to action.
Many say Iranians are now looking to Pahlavi.
They are chanting the final battle. This is more important because they are chanting this is the final battle. Pahlavi will return because it's a clear vision. They want Islamic Republic overturned and they want a Pahlavi regime back.
But despite decades of tyranny, the gospel has flourished in Iran. Hormoz Shariat of Iran Alive Ministries telling CBN's The Global Lane how the word is spreading.
Every year, Gary, every year, I said things in Iran cannot get any worse. And then it does. Then spiritually, I say this cannot get any better. People in Iran are so open to the gospel. And then it gets better. If you look at the number of salvation, if you look at our curve of number of people who have come to salvation, it starts small 25 years ago, but it's growing exponentially. It's amazing. The curve jumping. The number of people coming to Christ is growing exponentially.
Well, for more on this story, Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, does the government of Israel believe the Iranian regime could actually collapse? And then follow-up on that is, what would happen if it did?
Well, Gordon, yes, I do believe Israel believes it could collapse. It's possible, but I would say not inevitable. But Iran right now faces a perfect storm. They have an economic collapse. They have these growing nationwide protests. They have the U.S. support of the protesters, and they have a leader that's rallying these protesters. But the regime is fighting back, Gordon, and reportedly using the IRGC to quench these protests, even Iraqi militias to come in and quash the rebellion. But there's also cracks in the regime, Gordon, and reports, for example, that the family of Iranian President Hassan Rouhani and the Speaker of the Parliament, they're seeking asylum in France. So we really could be at a tipping point. And what could happen if the regime collapses? Could we see a return of Pahlavi? Could we have a period of uncertainty? What would a transition look like? Remains to be seen, Gordon, but we're at historic times. Certainly an encouragement for all of us to be praying for these protesters and for the future of Islam in Iran.
What's the key to France being the sort of sheltering place for Iranians? That's where Khomeini was, and his famous recording of a bunch of cassette tapes that went throughout Iran that led to the overthrow of the monarchy back in the 1970s. Why France?
Well, I think that's the key. You mentioned Gordon, is because that's where Khomeini came back in 1979. And those, as you said, those famous cassette tapes, they were undermining the regime of the Shah at that time. And that's where there was this connection between France and Iran. And that's where Rouhani seems to be going. And maybe the family of the Speaker of the Parliament. So I think that's the connection. There's a historic connection between France and Iran, and that's where that connection comes in.
Well, what can President Trump do? I know he's already posted on the internet, and it's done in Farsi, that if the Iranian military or their security forces start attacking the protesters, that he's going to intervene. It seems like they're ignoring that, but is that helping the movement?
Yeah, surely it's an encouragement to the movement, and the president really has a lot of tools he can use. He can use cyber intelligence capabilities that could degrade the regime's apparatus to repress the protesters, and that could neutralize that kind of machinery. What that would do, Gordon, would level the battlefield for these unarmed civilians who are facing an armed regime, and he can incentivize, encourage defections, he can provide secure communications, and what that would do, allow the Iranians to communicate so they can mobilize. Also, he can intensify diplomatic, economic pressure. And some people are saying what he doesn't need to do is to retreat. He needs to seize what many believe is a historic opportunity to help these people in Iran overthrow this dictatorship that may come just once in a generation.
Well, let's talk about the spread of Christianity. You know, I've been hearing for years that the Christian population of Iran, it's the fastest growing Christian population in the world. So what are you hearing from Christian ministries inside Iran about the spread of the gospel?
Well, Gordon, I think this is one of the major stories of the Holy Spirit and the church in the world today. What we're hearing is quiet but powerful underground revival, many ministries that are working with Iranian believers inside and outside the country. We just focused on Iran Allied Ministries in that report, but a deeply growing spiritual movement, many converts from Islam coming to faith in Jesus, meeting in secret house churches, small fellowship gatherings. I've heard of one story, they gather together and they pretend like they're having a birthday party in case the police come in, but they often worship in homes. And many of this is marked by supernatural dreams, visions, personal encounters, and just an amazing supernatural story of what's happening in Iran, despite ferocious opposition. And this is rapid growth. And as you said, maybe as many as 1 million believers inside Iran right now, and certainly playing a key role in intercession during these critical days in Iran.
Well, let's turn our attention to Syria and the Syrian army attacking Kurds in Aleppo. Once again, Aleppo in the headlines. Why is that so important, and what can the U.S. and Israel do about it?
Well, I think it's important, Gordon, because it's really showing the Syrian regime showing its spots. And what's happening right now is the Syrian army is surrounding 2 Kurdish neighborhoods in Aleppo. And what it's doing, an Israeli minister, Amichai Chikli, here in Israel, is saying Syria, backed by Turkey, is accusing it of ethnic cleansing. The same thing they did with the Druze, the Alawites, and the Christians within the past year. These are all against non-believers, the Christians, the Druze, the Kurds, anyone that's not a Sunni Islam. I talked earlier today, Gordon, to a Kurdish pastor. He says, these are the same jihadists who overthrew the Assad regime. Now they're part of the Syrian army, and they've just simply changed their uniforms, taking orders from Turkey. He says the Syrian ministries are keeping quiet, but he's appealing to the governments of the world and intervene to stop, in what he says, quote, the massacres taking place in his neighborhood. So the U.S. and certainly Israel can help support these Kurds, come against the Syrian regime and what it's doing, backed by Turkey. And certainly believers can be praying for those Kurds, Christians, right in harm's way right now in Aleppo.
All right. Well, Chris, thanks so much for the insight. Thanks for being with us, and continue to be the watchman on the wall for us all.
Thanks.
Well, here at home, people in Los Angeles are remembering the catastrophic fires that raged through the city a year ago. 31 people were killed, 57,000 acres burned. Well, CBN's Paul Petit brings us the story.
For victims of the LA fires, what happened here in January of 2025 is forever a part of their lives.
I wish we could just turn back the hands of time. It doesn't feel like a year, it feels like yesterday.
At the time, hurricane-force Santa Ana winds fueled flames that destroyed nearly 19,000 structures. Blake Mallon took these videos before he saw his Pacific Palisades home consumed.
I watched them pull out chainsaws out of their truck and tear out trees and try to prevent the jump and run hoses through my house and just, sit there. Couldn't keep it.
A year later, there's still plenty of blame to go around.
I had a hose in my hand when the water went out. I have a hydrant literally in front of my house. My house had sprinkler systems, right? You can see the San Ynez Reservoir from my backyard.
Rose Hayes was one of 200,000 residents evacuated. Today, she still needs food made available by Operation Blessing in Altadena.
All my pictures, everything was ashes.
Rebuilding here is at a trickle. Fewer than a dozen homes have been completely rebuilt, and only 13% of destroyed homes have been issued a building permit. Some Eaton fire victims have turned to living in campers. Loretta Heidelberg's home was one of 21 that burned on her street.
I have one friend that literally had vouchers and lived in 16 different hotels. Some of the hardships that people have experienced is unbelievable.
And a report just days ago, a startling admission by the new LA fire chief that the department watered down its after-action report on the Palisades fire to protect top brass.
This editing occurred prior to my appointment as fire chief, and I can assure you that nothing of this sort will ever again happen while I am fire chief.
In Pasadena, many gather to pray and worship. Lake Avenue Church has 90 families victimized by the fires, including orchestra director Dwayne Funderburk, whose home burnt down.
I think really it seemed like the focus of it was to bring people together and to encourage them and to increase their faith in God.
For many here still picking up the pieces, the first anniversary of the fire offered a time to reflect and remember that even in tragedy, God is still moving.
That's God's way of saying, I've got you. I know what's going on in your world, and I have never left you.
In Los Angeles, Paul Petit, CBN News.
Well, they call it Dina Strong there in Altadena, Pasadena. They say we're going to rise again from the ashes of this. Do keep in mind that the reason you're seeing people in hazmat suits is because the amount of asbestos that was used in the construction of some of those homes all the way back in the 1920s. And everyone thought asbestos roofs would be fine or asbestos lining to chimneys would be fine. When they were absolutely destroyed, well, now what do you do, and how do you do that cleanup? It's going to take years to do it, but in that time, the residents there are saying, we're strong, we're Dina strong, and we're going to be coming back. Let's join with them in that effort. Operation Blessing was there on the ground, and if you want to be a part of any kind of relief effort for the disasters, it's real simple. All you have to do is call us and say, I want to give to Operation Blessing Disaster Relief.